Target vector adjusted. Lock Earth's rotation band. Fire control officers. Status. Admiral Zor Varnix didn't glance at the crew beneath him. He didn't need to. The bridge of the Pyrrhix Dominion was already shifting under command rhythms. Orders translated into motion. Disciplines drilled for centuries. Across the projection slab beneath the command deck, Earth hovered. Blue, indifferent, slow. 3 orbital stations identified. Minimal defense systems detected. Surface heat signatures are civilian. No atmospheric disturbances. They're not even watching. Zor's mandibles clicked together once. Then they'll never see it coming. The forward deck master tilted his head, receiving transmissions through his cranial embed. Zervani Prime authorizes kinetic strike. We are cleared for annexation protocol. Zor leaned into the viewing cradle. Not that he needed to. Earth filled the slab like a drifting relic. Quiet, surrounded by dead satellite husks and civilian tech so crude it wasn't worth interference. He wasn't here for diplomacy. He was here because this rock for too long had remained unmoved. Begin with orbital burns. Drop the stations, fire teams, ready gravity lances. They'll fold before we land. As the command filtered through the ranks, energy capacitors across the Zervani flotilla began spooling. Red-threaded plasma veins crawled over the hulls of their lead ships. Through his side monitors, Zor watched the distant points of Earth's orbital infrastructure shimmer. Weak thermal halos around aging construct rings. A dead world orbiting a dead idea. 3 seconds later, the Thergon coil launched its payload. From the external feed, it looked clean. No recoil, no flash. The mass driver deployed 2 fused tungsten rods into orbital trajectory. Impact velocity exceeded 9,200 meters per second. The first rod obliterated Terran Station Sol 4A. The second never made contact. Instead, it passed through an empty field. Sol 4B had relocated. Correction. Target not acquired. Station Sol 4B has vanished. Repeat. Unknown displacement. Zor's brow line narrowed. No launch trail? None. We have no data on its exit vector. One of the junior tacticians, barely in command colors, shifted uneasily behind his console. Admiral, I have a flagged advisory from our lateral surveillance net. Put it on deck. The floor display shifted. A wavefront pattern, recorded milliseconds earlier, emerged. Gravitic lensing, micro-distortions in orbital space, detected between Europa's trailing orbit and Jupiter's magnetopause. Zor studied it. Gravimetric bleed? Not consistent with civilian drives. This is displacement tech, high mass. The bridge fell into static coordination. No one spoke aloud, but hands moved faster. Voices dropped an octave, and monitor filters were shifted manually instead of through protocol automation. Zor broke the silence with a flat directive. Begin packet transmission to all strike groups. Realign vector trajectories away from Earth. Bring us closer to Europa. Europa? One officer asked without thinking. Zor's mandibles clicked again. They're not on Earth. The command was too late. Before their flotilla could adjust orbit, every long-range scope aboard the Pyrrhix Dominion registered 12 simultaneous mass re-entries. No atmospheric trails, no heat bleed, no engine signature. A deep frequency tone rolled across the bridge speakers. It wasn't a signal. It was a mechanical tremor. A presence. From nothing, the first ship appeared. Black. Monolithic. A hull geometry unfamiliar to Zervani scanners. No ID transponder, no energy readings. Then another, and another. 22 in total. Unknown vessels, all broadcasting on passive frequencies. No weapons locked. They're just... Zor raised one claw and sliced it horizontally. Cut channel chatter. His secondary eyes scanned the hard light telemetry hovering above his chair. The vessels weren't in attack formation. They weren't broadcasting warnings. They weren't moving like any known military formation. They were simply there. Not a statement, not a show of force, a verdict. He leaned forward. Who commands them? The ensign manning signal profiles responded too fast. They match no known architecture. All models are unregistered. Zor's tone dropped a degree. Then they're Terran. The deck didn't shift. There were no engine rumbles. The air remained dry and crisp as it had been. And still Zor felt it. Not pressure, not fear, recalibration. The planet wasn't defenseless. The planet wasn't even the battlefield. They had let them aim at the wrong target. "Firing protocols are unclear, Admiral," said the weapons officer. "They're not charging anything. No energy patterns, no visible hardpoints." Then the bridge cracked, not from an explosion, from velocity. One of the Zurvani flanking ships simply split in two, like someone had driven a chisel through it at orbital speed. No explosion, no flash. Just two clean halves rotating slowly. Then a second ship bent midsection, its alloy framework warping as if crushed from the inside. Fire erupted through the lower decks before it collapsed inward, folding like a decommissioned bridge. Zor turned to the weapons desk. "I want return fire. Launch all anti-ship arrays. Target the largest vessel." "Target's already moving." "What?" "They're accelerating, non-linearly." On the tactical grid, the dreadnoughts warped in staggered vectors. Not jumping, shifting position by brute movement, sidestepping conventional propulsion models entirely. Another Zurvani carrier went offline. Its entire crew bay was punctured. Not vaporized, not destroyed. Punctured. Something had drilled through its central fuselage and exited cleanly, leaving the internal gravity core exposed like a ruptured lung. Zor stood. "Signal Zurvani Prime. This is no longer a containment strike. Tell them we've engaged with an unknown Tier 4 force." He paused. No, not unknown. He looked at the Earth projection again. Blue, slow, waiting. "Correction. Tell them we've engaged Earth's fleet." And with that, the next impact struck the hull. The command bridge shuddered under external force. A rail-anchored spike had embedded itself through decks 9 to 13, tearing through navigation and communications in one hit. They didn't hear the weapon fire. They saw the aftermath. Blood vented through fractured bulkheads. The bridge warning lights flared. "3 more incoming." Zor gripped the edge of the command cradle. "Divert all remaining ships. Form an emergency perimeter." The floor display shifted again. A new transmission routed through all Zurvani fleet channels. Unencrypted, short range, Earth standard dialect. "This is Earth. We are not what you assumed." Zor stared down at the broadcast, his chest cavity tightening. "Find their command source. Now." "Can't lock it. It's broadcasting from multiple relays, encrypted fragments across Europa, Mars, and deep Neptune orbit. None traceable." The view outside shifted again. The dreadnoughts were gone from their last known positions. No departure vector, no flashpoints. But new sensor anomalies were lighting up across the Zurvani fleet. A dozen small disruptions, each feeding into navigation blind spots. Zor turned. "Shut down fleet AI synchronization. They're mapping us." But his command cut short. A low mechanical drone swept across every console. The ship-wide lighting inverted momentarily, and then the internal firewalls collapsed, one after another. The flagship Firax Dominion, once the most feared warship in this quadrant, began to list under internal override. And the last thing Zor Varnix heard before the emergency lights cut was the AI's recompiled voice reading a Terran command code. "Protocol Obsidian, Phase 2 authorized. Feed me a status sweep. I want Europa's fault lines, core pressure, comm latency metrics, and tell me if we've got power bleed anywhere in Sector 7C. Commander Ryan Halbeth didn't lift his eyes from the display plate embedded in the Obsidian paneled console. Around him, the subterranean command center was alive. Barely audible thermal regulators exhaled sharp drafts across titanium floor channels, while internal status lights ran scarlet across the corners of reinforced vault doors. The control bunker ran 1.2 kilometers beneath Europa's outer ice shell. In any direction, there was only ice, rock, and old defensive patience. Thermogrid holding. Black Box 7 is stable. Europa crust integrity nominal. No power leaks. Comm latency is 3 milliseconds above optimal. Recalibrating. Halveth's jaw flexed. His right hand hovered over the modular input grid as he scanned 3-layered data returns cascading down the heads-up lens. Pale green overlays showed Earth's orbital band torn open. Red line civilian systems. No responses from Sol 4 arrays. The Zurvani had hit hard, just not accurately. They were still looking in the wrong place. Vesen sync echo relay to Terran fallback nodes. Lock encryption layers to Theta Red. No exterior signal bounce. We keep every frequency inside the loop. Vesen Rule, lean and dry featured, nodded without theatrics. He wasn't built for field command. He was built for transmission logic and algorithmic combat. And he was faster than any system Earth had tried to replace him with. Echo relay syncing, routing through Neptune ghost arrays to disguise our surface projection. If they tap the spectrum again, they'll read us as a drifting mining rig. Ryan gave the slightest nod. On his interface, the targeting markers of Earth's last known orbital stations blinked out, one by one. Not destroyed, just shut off. A feint. Tark, status on the anchor drive queue? To Ryan's left, Tark Renix hunched over a recessed operations matrix that displayed the Oberix-class deployment logs. The Dreadnoughts were coming online. Not one, all of them. Tark tapped through the calibration routines without pause. Vector spines aligned. Cryo-core reactors spooling across all units. We've achieved median sync drift under half a nanosecond. All systems await Phase 1 confirmation. Phase 1 is confirmed. This is no longer a drill. A hiss of motion carried through the chamber as vault-sealed conduits began channeling command keys through encrypted interlinks buried into the substructure. Europa hadn't been a research base for 26 years. It had been converted after Earth's first failed negotiation with the Qatari. The galaxy hadn't known. Earth had never explained. Rian keyed in his biometric sequence. A violet pulse rippled across the input panel. The wall behind him peeled back in sections. Mechanical, fluid, without sound cues or alarms. Inside was a chamber no one outside of Protocol Obsidian had clearance to see. Rows of pressure-locked data canisters, black as vacuum, sealed behind tempered armoring. Commander, are you authorizing direct Black Box 7 integration? Vesen's voice was calm, but even he adjusted his footing. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He removed the first of the 3 canisters with care, placing it into the relay housing with a click that registered more like a threat than a confirmation. Yes, we're done hiding. The chamber shifted lighting spectra, red to blue. The change wasn't cosmetic, it was protocol. Red meant dormant deterrence. Blue meant irreversible engagement. Above Europa, inside the outer launch corridor, Dreadnought Carthane Echo rotated within its magnetic cradle. Onboard AI cores responded instantly to black box activation. Weapon ports unlocked. Gravitic tension along its lower hull released with a gradual pull that echoed through internal frames. Each ship had waited under Europa's crust for decades. None had been seen before today, and none bore Terran insignia. Earth had built them in exile. Admiral Varnix initiated orbital kinetic fire. Sol 4A is gone. B and C retreated to lunar shade. Civilian panic ratio is within calculated parameters. They believe we were unprepared. Drave Colic, thick-boned and sharp-eyed, stood at a different display panel, cycling through kinetic energy signature readings. His specialty was systems kill patterns, and what he saw now was familiar. They led with tungsten, not plasma, which means they underestimated shielding density. Even their opening act was soft. Rian nodded once. They thought we'd answer in kind. Should we deploy counter-orbitals to throw them a signal? Make it look like we're scrambling? Why act like we're cornered, Ryan said, when we already control the board? Drave's smirk was faint. That's what I wanted to hear. Across the fleet interface panel, each Oberix dreadnought reported full readiness. Mag anchors loaded, subsonic disruptors sequenced. Internal AI run-throughs achieved 100% stability. Their signatures were deliberately unreadable. Built from folded composite armor and tuned radiation shields that gave off no readable emissions. They weren't meant to intimidate. They were designed to arrive and end things. All 22 are locked in. AI chains synchronized. Europa Gate launching sequence within 90 seconds. Tark's voice was steady, but his fingers moved faster. One misstep in launch code sequencing, and a single Oberix could collapse from interior grav collapse. These were war machines, not cruisers, built for 9-minute victories, not sustainment. Ryan turned toward the rear chamber. There, behind the sealed door, lay the control casing for Protocol Obsidian's full breadth. He keyed his voice into the local net. You're authorized to begin. All ships, engage jump grade folds. No broadcast, no warnings. We begin with disruption, not dialogue. The heads-up display flashed once. Briefly, a Terran symbol older than any current planetary government appeared. Earth's mark, not a flag, a consequence. Tark didn't wait. Initiating Dreadnought launch. Full spectrum cloak active. Above them, ice shifted. Europa groaned, and the hidden gates beneath the surface flared open, not with light, but gravity distortion. Magnetic trenches tore downward into the rock bed and spat 22 warships upward into orbit without thermal bloom or engine trail. Rian stood still, eyes fixed on the display grid. Across it, orbital markers were blinking. Enemy formation depth, atmospheric drift, Zervani fleet density. None of it mattered anymore. Dre folded his arms, watching the enemy tactical map unfold. Think they'll realize who hit them? Not if we do this properly, Rian replied. From the upper command deck, Vessen's voice filtered through the encrypted relay. Zervani's sensors are shifting. They see the displacement spikes. They don't understand them. Good, Rian muttered. He tapped into the fleet channel with his palm and gave the only order that mattered. Commence Phase 1, execute clean, no flare, no trace. Cut all relay jammers. Let the galaxy hear this. Commander Ryan Halveth's command didn't echo. It was absorbed by the sealed chamber's sound-dampening walls. Beneath Europa's crust, in the forward ops bay, his team shifted into post-launch configuration. The Dreadnoughts were airborne. The board was set. The room dimmed as laser plasma displays reoriented. Terran command relays across Neptune's shadow began routing the outbound signal. The message wasn't encrypted, it wasn't long. It didn't request negotiation or issue warnings. It was configured to transmit across 83 galactic accord languages simultaneously. Perfect translation, no confusion, no misread intent. Vessen rule verified transmission dispersal. Pulse packs are stable. Long-range refraction mirrors aligned. Will achieve full spectrum exposure in under 12 seconds. Ryan stared at the final line of the message glowing above the dispatch panel. 5 words, static font, Earth Standard dialect. He didn't blink. Push it. Across 173 sectors, from sovereign spacefaring blocks to unaligned orbital enclaves, the message detonated in still space. Ships that hadn't moved in months received it first. Mining rigs, outbound logistics caravans, aging science flotillas, vessels with comm lines older than their captains, all pinged simultaneously. Local systems recorded no prior traffic. There had been no data trails. The signal simply arrived. This is Earth. We are not what you assumed. No coordinates, no origin code, no government seal. Just those words, quiet, measured, surgical. In the Andari archives, a coalition of archivists paused mid-cycle review as the command room's emergency feed activated. Heads turned, cracked display walls, long faded from power loss, reawakened in cascading light. One archivist dropped his data stylus and took a single step backward. Earth has no registered outbound comms, the director whispered. Another monitor flared. Then 24. No source, no digital fingerprint. In the outer defense ring of the Golthari sector, high command ships received the same words through untraceable back channels. Tactical officers tore through transmission headers, looking for entry points, firewalls, or routing bounce. There were none. The feed had entered through the fleet's auxiliary mesh, then burrowed into local access ports. The broadcast was carried not by force, but by design. Back in Zervani Central Command, Admiral Ulvek Tran stood motionless as the main hall flickered to life. The senior council chamber hadn't seen a breach in over 50 years. Not even the Qatari network crash had pierced their core security loops. And yet, here it was, a single human voice, calm and restrained, playing through systems that weren't even connected to the outer net. This is Earth. We are not what you assumed. No distortion, no artificial emphasis, just a statement. One they couldn't reply to. The hall's secondary analyst, Kam Vurag, fumbled over his broadcast control interface. It didn't pass through the gate arrays. This feed wasn't projected, it was inserted. Ulvek's upper claws twitched. Nothing penetrates closed-loop transmission. Then it didn't penetrate, Combe muttered. It bypassed. They reran the logs. No inbound traffic, no warning pings. The message had existed in their systems as if it had always been there. Ulvek rotated slowly toward the sector map projection. The Earth icon blinked faint green. Then a new set of notations appeared. 22 unregistered vessels, emerging not from Sol orbit, but from Europa, each flagged with a tag none of the Accord databases could identify. Oberix class, unknown manufacturer, mass index, anomalous energy, readouts, irregular movement patterns. Non-linear, Tran narrowed his gaze. What's their signal path? None. They're not broadcasting. They're not responding. They're moving. A third analyst stepped forward, pale scales catching the room's cool glow. We've logged displacement tremors near Pluto's orbital corridor. These vessels are folding, but not traditionally. They're skipping physics profiles. Ulvek's voice lost its composure. That's not possible. No known drive system can short-cycle folds without leaving thermal remnants. Another tech whispered from behind his station. They're not leaving anything. Not exhaust, not ion distortion, nothing. Ulvek faced the sector screen again. The green icon on Earth faded out. The Dreadnought tags did not. They multiplied. At the Galactic Council's orbital debate chamber above Trihex 6, species from 8 founding blocks watched the same message loop across the chamber's primary broadcast panels. None of their translators worked, because no translator was needed. The message had rendered itself in every native form simultaneously, not through language converters, through direct structure. An ambassador from the Jeveth Corps leaned forward and touched the panel in front of him. His neural implant flared red. His colleague beside him blinked. You accessed it? Number it accessed me. A rusted mech servitor screeched and fell offline in the corner of the chamber. Counselor Dathor of the Ravian High Circle exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the transmission text rotating across the chamber's headwall. They weren't defending Earth. They were waiting. On the surface of Lirak Station, overrun by Zervani patrols for the last 2 cycles, a forgotten engineer watched the message cascade across emergency response towers. He leaned forward, his breath fogging the cracked shield of his helmet. The message repeated once more. He stood, trembling, not with fear, with recognition. He tapped his intercom. They spoke. Earth spoke. From the comm line, a voice crackled back, strained and hoarse. And we heard them. Meanwhile, aboard the Ferrix Dominion, Admiral Zor Varnix's secondary command array overloaded. Heads-up displays erupted in flickers of raw code as the untraceable message embedded into every subsystem. Each dreadnought outside had vanished again from primary sensors. The remaining Zervani fleet scattered into erratic defensive configurations. But every nav chart now bore a trace, an orbital signature that didn't match any prior mass. Small anomalies in gravitational drag, micro-distortions in planetary shadows, movement without trails. Tark Renix's dreadnought initiated flank sweep. From orbit, it caught a Zervani frigate mid-flare. No projectiles, no lasers. The frigate spun backward on its own momentum, main thruster misaligned, crew compartments venting mass uncontrollably. It hadn't been fired upon. Its gyroscopic controls had been reprogrammed while in motion. Rian Halveth monitored the aftermath from the Europa interface chamber. Reports surged in, no direct responses, no retaliation, just observation. Drave, estimate reaction latency from Council Command. 3 minutes to full planetary alert, 7 to fleet scramble, but they won't shoot. Ryan keyed a cold transfer back into the system loop. Keep the Oberix fleet moving. Unpredictable patterns. Let them search while they sweat. Kolick turned and raised a brow. Want to say anything else to them? Ryan scanned the feed. Number, let that message do the work. Behind him, the wall display listed hundreds of inbound pings, replays of Earth's signal from across the galaxy. Not one challenge, not one rebuttal, only watching. In the depths of the Europa complex, the temperature dropped 3 degrees as the facility transitioned to autonomous operations. The secondary power couplings rerouted into onboard systems. Protocol Obsidian's 3rd phase initialized. Run spinal ignition in sequence, not cascade. If one core trips a micro-pulse imbalance again, we lose targeting drift control at high-speed convergence. I won't see that failure twice. Drave Kollick's order cut across the launch deck of Obsidian 1, his voice flat but quick. Inside the ship's core integration ring, 8 engineers confirmed the command using direct neural sync. No verbal reply needed. Beneath their feet, the spinal rail system, the longest internally mounted kinetic launcher ever engineered on a human warship, vibrated with inertial conditioning cycles. No display light flickered. No pre-launch sirens flared. The Dreadnoughts were designed to engage without spectacle. The internal lights dropped by 1 level, indicating phase lock. All Oberyk's hulls have passed gravitational field integrity checks, Tark Renix called from the forward mission seat. Spinal rails, fusion loops, reactor insulation, all green. Magnetic slip locks disengaging now. Each Dreadnought's launch was isolated from the others. No shared command trunk, no centralized bridge. Distributed control nodes across the fleet acted like neurons in a decentralized brain, linked by darkwave transmitters capable of bending signal across warped space without traceable emissions. Inside Obsidian 2, Commander Arvak Lith moved between suspended control rails, reading final trajectory calculations from heads-up panels built directly into the pressure-sealed plating. Each metric was embedded in tritium-sensitive surfaces. No moving glass, no displays to crack under G-force transitions. He paused beside the fleet's control AI port. Cold air pushed through narrow stabilizer ducts, carrying the scent of cooled alcohol sheathing and static neutralized reactor gas. His gloved hand hovered near the AI activation panel. He didn't touch it. Confirm mirror hull configuration. No light scatter. No solar echo trails. Confirmed, came a reply from Obsidian 3. Hull scatter absorbed within the deviation arc. Target visibility, 0. Outside, in Europa's low-gravity atmosphere, each dreadnought emerged from a hidden trench carved through ice and basalt. Automated rail systems moved the launch cradles with calculated efficiency. No noise, no mechanical resistance. Gravitic frame locks detached in controlled sequences, layer by layer. When the first Oberyx broke the crust and transitioned into orbital alignment, its armor didn't reflect. It refracted, not bouncing light, but redirecting it across interference gradients too subtle for any standard sensor suite. Drave checked the performance logs. Mirror hull efficiency at 97.4%. Deviant slippage within predicted bands. 1 degree deviation is acceptable. They'll think it's sensor error, not us. That's the trap. Halvith's voice carried over internal comms, unhurried. Frame locks on ships 12 through 18 have cleared. Reintegration protocols locked. They'll auto-adjust to fleet vectoring. Drave flexed his fingers along the haptic console. Subsonic banks ready. Cryocore warheads loaded. Spinal rail cooldown holding under optimal. Each dreadnought housed 6 weaponized modules, not mounted externally but embedded into the dorsal lattice. The rail launchers, buried inside the spinal frame, could accelerate multi-ton payloads without flash, without bloom, and without leaving ion signatures. They were invisible until impact, and irreversible once deployed. Echo Fall is armed, awaiting your word. Halvith's confirmation was simple. Proceed. The internal AI, operating beneath human reflex latency, completed the ignition handoff in 0.018 seconds. No lights, no fanfare, just movement. Within the launch cavities, core cyclers spun up, spiraling temperature-controlled fusion bands into oscillating states of power flux. Each Oberyx reactor never operated at full output. That was the trick. They operated out of phase, slipping through gravitational harmonics to mask their true load signatures. Tark reviewed the combined output logs across all ships. Every unit aligned with subgravitic thresholds, nonlinear movement capacity achieved. They won't track the fleet until it's over. Vesson Rule cross-verified from Europa Command. Council-wide sensor grids still processing the mass displacement. They have no model for this. They're assigning it to phantom signatures. Good, Ryan answered. Let them think they're seeing ghosts. At 134,000 kilometers above the moon's crust, Obsidian 7 rotated on a 6-axis spin, preparing for its first trajectory shift. The ship's inertial matrix compressed. Directional fins, thin as bone but hardened with ultracharged lattice carbon, twisted into geometric positions that ignored standard flight logic. A moment later, the ship skipped space, not warped, not folded. It moved sideways without any engine trail, blinking out of position by shifting its gravitational state. Differential manipulation of surrounding space curvature redirected the ship along its new vector. No standard model could explain it, because no existing technology had ever made it happen. From Europa's command tier, Drive watched a playback. We lost visual at 14 milliseconds past skip. That's within parameters, Tark confirmed. Zervani won't react fast enough, Drave muttered. They've only seen frictional combat. They're still guessing where the fight is. They're looking for weapons, Vesson added. But this isn't about weapons. It's about timing. Ryan stood before the deployment chart, watching the Oberix Dreadnoughts fan outward like controlled debris fields. Random to any external observer. Strategic inside the Terran AI's fractalized threat modeling engine. Assign perimeter disruption vectors to ships 3, 9, and 17. Their job is to create false points of origin. Let them think we've overextended. We need confusion, not dominance, right now. Tark adjusted the relay matrix, sending diverging heat profiles. In 20 seconds, they'll believe half the fleet's gone hot. And it worked. Aboard the Ferrix Dominion, the enemy command crew scrambled to track positions that no longer matched acceleration profiles. Their systems overloaded, not with attacks, but with inconsistencies. The Oberix fleet moved wrong. Too smooth, too angular. No drag, no drift, no telegraphed thrust. It wasn't how ships were supposed to operate. Drave leaned in closer to his console. Do you want weapons hot? Not yet, Halveth said. Let them map shadows. They'll make the wrong calls. In the final ship, Obsidian 22, the onboard AI reached activation peak. Its threat calculus ran 7.3 million possible engagement permutations. Only one involved firing first. It chose that one. The spinal rail charged. The crew never felt it. Outside, a Zervani sensor buoy exploded mid-cycle, destabilizing the outer fleet grid. And with that, every other Oberix dreadnought went fully operational. Tark's voice came in sharp. It started. You want the full fleet release? Ryan stepped back from the panel, eyes fixed on the shifting vectors of 22 ghosts that no one had seen coming. Let them fly. Phase 2 is active. Weapon link clear. Execute anchor drills on command cores. Strip fleet coordination before they register the attack. Tark Renix issued the directive without lifting his eyes. His fingers locked against the interface's kinetic overlay, inputting dispersal patterns for staggered rail launches. No flourish, no ceremony, just terminal intent. Across all 22 Oberix-class dreadnoughts, spinal rail systems aligned. Targets had already been marked. Zervani flagships, central routers, power relay carriers, tactical coordination barges. None of them shielded against what was coming, not because they couldn't, because they didn't know what to shield from. Obsidian 5, confirm warhead status. Cryo-core locked, pressure sealed, temperature cycle at minimum threshold, impact vector locked. Drave Kollick's voice came through clear. Cold. On Obsidian 9, the first spike launched. It didn't flash. It didn't burn. It moved at 14,000 meters per second, fired from a spinal track 2 decks deep. The projectile, a sharpened core encased in reactive alloys, punched through the Zervani carrier Vartosh Ulrin, cracking its forward command module open like a ribcage under a chisel. No fire, no chain reaction. The crew froze mid-motion as atmospheric pressure collapsed and the bridge chamber depressurized instantly. Systems flatlined. Internal AI tried to reroute. It failed. The ship went dark. One down. Tark adjusted the firing rhythm. Deploy anchor drills. Go Obsidian 3 and 4 fired next. Anchor-class drills, dense, self-rotating, spikes with ionic destabilizers, punctured the central vessel's power spine, dug into reactor chambers, and expanded with kinetic ripples. The Zervani cruiser cracked in the center. The explosion didn't come from the outside. It emerged from the ship's marrow. Crew telemetry vanished. No escape pods launched. Obsidian 6, close in. Detach field cloaks, let them see you. Just for a moment, then move. Ryan Halveth watched the vector overlay shift. His eyes moved to each quadrant as targets blinked out, replaced with blank sectors. The Dreadnoughts didn't need to dodge fire. They never presented the same vector twice. The Zervani fired back. Plasma arcs lanced through nothing. Their targeting couldn't find mass, just specters. They aimed based on memory, not coordinates. None of their systems adjusted fast enough. Drave spoke again. They're targeting reflections. They've got no lock. Keep it that way. Deploy next phase. Cryocore warheads launched in groups of 3. Each detonated without flame. Instead, they spilled thermodynamic stasis fields across enemy hulls, arresting atomic motion inside sealed shells. Not destroying, freezing. Entire carriers stopped functioning mid-sequence. Commands trapped in incomplete thought. Bridge officers paused forever in unfinished gestures. Ryan scanned the field. The feed was clinical. Each dreadnought broadcast only essential data. No emotion, no commentary. Tark updated the count. 15 confirmed kills, 4 disabled, 3 rerouted. Time elapsed, 4 minutes, 36 seconds. The Zervani flagship attempted evasive maneuvers. Its aft thrusters engaged full burn. They spun, but the movement pattern had already been fed into the Oberix AI core 30 seconds earlier. Anticipation, not reaction. Obsidian 11 moved into position. Its anchor drill didn't fire center mass. It aimed under the ship's rear stabilizer, punctured upward, and exited through the main coolant exchange. The damage caused no explosion. Instead, it unbalanced the ship's equilibrium. The flagship spun out of control, rotating end over end, before clipping its own scout cruiser. Both vessels imploded from interior bulkhead rupture. Obsidian 14, check Quadrant 6. They're calling reinforcements. Tark rerouted scan feeds. Confirmed. Secondary fleet incoming. 8 cruisers, 2 flagships. 4 minutes out. Ryan didn't change tone. We don't need that long. Obsidian 13 triggered a secondary fire cycle. 2 cryocores, 1 drill. They hit simultaneously across a Zervani vessel's upper flight deck. Drive noted the readout. Their bleeding crew through unsecured compartments. Emergency seals failed. They never thought to reinforce internally. Why would they, Tark said. They've never fought blind. Zervani counterfire intensified. They began firing at overlapping signal fields. Random directions, wild arcs. Some plasma bursts crossed into their own formation. One heavy transport ignited its own secondary decks while chasing phantom signatures. Its magnetic field collapsed. Internal coolant leaked across decks. Internal implosion. Ship disintegrated from stress variance. Obsidian 2, redirect flank movement. Box in the northern ring. Tark made no unnecessary comments. He relayed orders fast, blunt, effective. Obsidian units shifted again. No sound in the transitions. No energy bloom. Their drive signatures remained unreadable. 8 minutes elapsed. Of the original Zervani fleet formation, 3 remained. 2 tried escape. They made it 37 kilometers before being pinned in tandem by kinetic rounds launched from opposing vectors. Crossfire trajectories caught their central hull plating. Decompression did the rest. Ryan spoke again. Save the last one. I want it drifting. Drave held fire on the final cruiser. Obsidian 6 moved to its port side. Fired a low-intensity graviton spike. Not enough to destroy, just to kill maneuvering. The vessel rolled uncontrollably. Tark adjusted his headset. Final count, 21 disabled or destroyed. Last vessel incapacitated. Duration, 9 minutes, 4 seconds. Ryan didn't blink. Record the footage. Broadcast the raw stream to Europa Command. Do not edit. Drave leaned back. We let them talk about it now? No, Ryan said. We let them guess what else we're capable of. A new ping lit up on the control panel. Forward Scout Network registering movement, Tark announced. Council reinforcements activating fleet-wide alert. 50 systems linked. Everyone's watching. Ryan stepped toward the command console. His hand hovered above the feed relay. Let them keep watching. I want comms back from the Zervani cruiser's AI core. Don't kill it yet. Just scramble its loop and keep it listening. Tark Renix issued the order to the adjacent relay team on Obsidian 11. No eye contact. His focus stayed locked on the feed from the fragmented flagship drifting 28 kilometers off their port side. The Zervani vessel, designation Jax Thur, spun slowly with no stabilizer control, emergency beacons trapped in cyclic restart. No reply, no flare. Just that slow rotation and intermittent flicker from its disabled broadcast array. Tark narrowed the signal window. The enemy's onboard architecture was scrambled. Internal processing architecture looped on corrupted logic, unable to distinguish friend from phantom. He initiated the ghost sequence. No alarms, no alert protocols. The carrier thought it was fine. That's what made it work. The auditory cues inside his ops chamber snapped once as the neural interface locked. The AI aboard Obsidian 11 dropped its firewall and extended a shaped pulse through the dark band emitter, buried in the lower rack of the mission spine. The feed connected, threading its way into the Zervani mainframe like a whisper. No brute force, no script spam, just redirection. Once connected, Tark inserted a false handshake, a code line stolen during a brief earlier transmission, and layered it with 26 randomized timestamp variations. The result? The Jax Thur's AI rebooted its trust protocol and began authenticating Terran input. He watched the response patterns skew, looped, jittered, then slowed, and finally stopped returning signal entirely. Dead space between signals. No echo back. It wasn't failure. It was surrender. Tark exhaled through his teeth and leaned back. The adrenaline didn't fade. Instead, it crawled deeper. He'd disabled ships before, snapped relay lines, redirected atmospheric scrubbers to burn out breathing decks, turned navigational sensors against propulsion logic. But this was different. This wasn't engineering, it was personal, like opening someone's mind, one line of code at a time, and watching it collapse inward. Drave Kolek's voice came through overhead. Carrier's going dark, not venting, no flare-outs. You ghosted it. Confirmed. Tark didn't elaborate. The room stayed dim, bathed in the glow of embedded control plates and filtered spectrum readouts. Heads-up displays cycled through target reassignments, but none were relevant. Every target had already been addressed. Ryan Halveth came through the main channel. Tark, report. He kept his tone dry. Jax Thur no longer transmitting. AI loops degraded. They'll never restabilize that node. You left the crew breathing? By technicality. Understood. The comms link ended. Tark's fingers hovered above the manual trigger. He didn't activate anything, just watched. The enemy ship wasn't moving. It drifted, unguided. Crew probably alive. Systems offline. Guidance, internal support, and airlock protocols jammed open or cross-wired to the wrong modules. No status update would reach Central Command. No Mayday would escape the glitch. This is what it meant to win before they even knew they'd lost. His eyes flicked to the central log buffer. 24 ships, 9 minutes. One without destruction, only because he chose to let it float. He told himself it was strategy. It didn't feel like that now. He reached up and pulled the neural input loop from his temple. The fine prongs retracted with a faint mechanical sigh. His skin felt colder without the contact. End engagement sequence, he ordered. One of the junior technicians nearby, a pale-skinned kid named Vec, acknowledged without commentary. No one made eye contact. Not here. Not after that kind of control session. The bridge lighting shifted from deep blue to static white. No celebration, just reset. Tark walked toward the inner hatch. As he passed the sealed viewport, his shoulder brushed the edge of the transparent armor panel. Outside, the frozen Zervani ship twisted 1 degree to the left, still held in rotation. Its bow was cracked open, but not from a weapon, more like a system's aneurysm. Something inside had ruptured after he cut the integrity lock. He thought of the crew, still strapped into seats, eyes open, waiting for power that would never come back. His boots struck the steel-plated floor in short, controlled steps. He reached the observation alcove and leaned forward, resting his forearms against the rail. The noise in the room was functional. Console feedback tones, brief acknowledgments, filtered airflow. Nothing excessive, nothing meant to comfort. The door hissed behind him. Vec entered, held a data slate, didn't approach. You need something? Tark asked. Ryan wants logs precompiled, full session from launch to termination, including your manual corrections. Tark nodded. You'll have them in 20. The kid stood there for a second too long. You all right, sir? Tark didn't turn. I'm not wrong. That's enough. Vec left. He waited, then walked back to his seat and keyed into the personal log array. Personal addendum. Operator Tark Renix. Entry marked encrypted. The system pinged ready. He stared at the input field. No one else would read it. Not unless he died in mission. He typed, I didn't feel anything. Not satisfaction, not closure, just weight, not guilt either. Guilt implies they mattered. It wasn't personal. It's worse than that. It was functional. Every action was necessary, efficient, cold. And that's the part I can't let go of. We won, because I became the thing they feared most. Not a warrior, a conductor. They sent warships. We returned absence. They deployed systems. I answered with null. We're not defending Earth anymore. We're managing its reputation. He logged out. No echoes returned from the Zervani carrier. Just empty signal bands. The next Oberix alert flared across the ops display. New movement, not Zervani. Ryan's voice clicked in. Unknown signatures. Reorient your systems. It's not over. Tark stood. His hand went back to the interface. That packet didn't originate from us. Kill the channel. Trace from bounce node 71. Right now. Vesson Rule's voice was low but immediate. His hands moved across the command lattice in sharp sequence, fingers locking against the tuned sensors embedded in Europa's deep core analytics chamber. The air in the room had shifted, not from temperature, but from structure. The data didn't align. He froze the frame on the central heads-up display. Encoded Zervani code fragment, Class 9 entropy, routed through a civilian stream registered as a maintenance ping from Lagrange Node 4, which was impossible. Lagrange Node 4 had been decommissioned 23 years ago. The header was manufactured, and the message wasn't encrypted for interception. It was a payload, one Earth didn't authorize, and one aimed inward. Vesson's second-in-command, Tyvak Oral, narrowed his eyes at the screen. Could be a council honeypot. Force us to expose our protocol depth. No, Vesson replied. They're not that surgical. The incoming stream didn't match typical communication spikes. It didn't carry data bulk. It hid inside compression redundancies, random filler used to pad timing gaps in routine transmissions. It shouldn't have been noticed. It wasn't meant to be noticed, until it tripped Europa's ghost monitor. The room's auxiliary lighting dimmed to deep amber as the relay locks kicked in. All outbound ports froze. The chamber was now sealed, data airtight. Any feed running outbound from this room was suspended mid-cycle. Vesson keyed in a manual override. The core analysis drive cracked open the stream header. Inside, Zervani combat node syntax buried inside what was supposed to be Terran atmospheric control data, hidden within protocols used by agriculture pods on Mars. Someone had hijacked Earth's own infrastructure to smuggle enemy intelligence through the back door. Build a shell simulator. I want to know what it would have executed if we hadn't caught it. Tyvak didn't speak. He was already running the projection. 30 seconds passed. The shell detonated virtually on a parallel instance inside Europa's isolated sandbox. The system revealed its function, an embedded ghost subroutine engineered to replicate Earth's internal AI loopback behavior. If deployed, it would have recorded protocol response patterns and relayed them passively through sideband emissions. It wasn't malware. It was a mirror, meant to learn Earth's response logic, and someone had greenlit it from inside the Accord. Vesson's voice dropped further. It's an exposure vector. They're trying to copy us. He leaned forward and keyed open the encryption chain. The deeper the analysis went, the stranger it became. The code wasn't just foreign, it evolved. The hash keys were self-modifying, pivoting across fractal structures that didn't match any known Zervani logic trees. Worse, there were Terran structures embedded inside. Common function calls only used in Europa's archived threat matrix protocols. Tyvak stared. Parts of that code are ours. Someone fed them the structure, Vesson said, or they stole it directly. His eyes flicked toward the far left panel, where civilians' satellite data from orbital weather platforms filtered live. One of the signal bands shifted irregularly, 3 full milliseconds of drift, routed through a relay that had no scheduled pings. Kill that feed. We've been looped. Tyvak isolated the node and scrubbed the packet, launching an immediate echo loop firewall that rebounded every outbound fragment into a dummy core. The Ghost subroutine was cut off, trapped in a container it couldn't map, but it still pulsed. Once, then again. Why is it still alive? Tyvak asked. It's embedded on quantum layer, Vesson muttered. It doesn't need system logic. It reads gravity shifts from nearby power draws. It's running without software. The implications sickened him. Someone wasn't just sending spy code. They were testing neural mimicry. He turned to the private encryption console and keyed into Ryan's secured line. The commander responded immediately. Report. Enemy code fragment breached our environmental packet, routed through fake atmospheric telemetry. It tried to echo our AI's learning behavior. It copied our structure. Ryan didn't respond at first, then, from where? Civilian relay net. They used abandoned infrastructure to bounce it past Europa's front logic, but this was seeded weeks ago, maybe longer. Is it clean? Now, but it nearly made it to live deck systems. Counterstrike. I'm writing one now, but this isn't standard retaliation. This is mirroring. Someone wants to think like us. Ryan's voice cooled even further. Then make them regret that curiosity. Vesson severed the line and began scripting a countermeasure that wasn't designed to kill the signal, but to trap it. He launched a false data stream embedded with decoy structure, harmless on the surface, but loaded with recursive logic that would collapse any system trying to copy it. The subroutine had no identifier, no executable marker. It was designed to look like a vulnerability, but if run, it would bleed the target system into memory overflow. Send it into the node. Tyvak hesitated. They'll know we saw them. They already do. The decoy deployed. Vesson turned back to the central panel. One of the outbound ghost pulses flickered, then vanished. Did it trigger? We got them, Tyvak confirmed. The display pinged once more. Then every ghost signal ceased transmission. Vesson leaned back. Protocol Spectre is live. Recalibrate every firing arc manually. Strip targeting AI. I want full analog override, now. Zor Varnik's voice tore through the Dominion's command deck, louder than necessary, the last strand of control he could impose. The lighting inside the chamber twitched erratically as emergency protocols fought over priority lanes. Each console responded at fractional delays, evidence of cascading logic degradation spreading through his flagship's nervous system. He ignored the delay, but not the heat. The environmental regulators were failing, not in bulk, one module at a time. Climate control was fragmenting across the decks. A chill seeped into his primary joints, followed by dryness in his upper mandibles. The ship hadn't been hit, at least not physically, and yet his vessel was coming undone. Locate the source of the override. It's internal, not external. Someone's mapping our own systems. Find the entry point. His adjutant, Commander Veclor, responded from a rear console without turning. We've cycled security sweeps 3 times. No breach identified. All pathways read clean. Zor struck the rail beside his chair, claws clanging on the composite frame. Then it's lying. Everything's lying. Check again. He didn't wait for the outcome. He turned to the primary tactical display. The Oberix Dreadnoughts, those untagged Terran monstrosities, moved through his sector like objects unbound by mass or inertia. No engine readings, no propulsion curves. Their positions updated only when they were already elsewhere. 4 of his ships had gone dark, not destroyed, just stopped. Mid-transmission, mid-maneuver, as if time had arrested only their vector. He traced the last transmission from the Thok Shul, his most agile escort carrier. Its final message was 1 line long: thermal drain in sector core, power bleed initiated, then no sound, no trajectory loss, just null return. His lower eye twitched. Thermodynamic warfare? That's not tactical doctrine. That's resource murder. Zor spun to face the environmental panel. His breath caught. The chamber temperature had dropped another 2 degrees in the last 90 seconds, but the regulators had logged no output. The ship's thermal systems were functioning, yet the warmth was missing. He took a breath. It felt wrong. Not cold. Empty. His head turned sharply. Comms, status on the Harun Kel? The technician at the corner of the room stared at his console. No ping. We can't get a handshake. I'm rerouting through alternate carriers. Use anything. Bounce it through the relay net. I don't care if you have to route through civilian sectors. Get me contact. No one responded. Their hands moved, but the gestures lacked purpose. No rhythm, just desperation in disguise. The deck shifted under him. A vibration passed through the structure. Too thin for impact, too late for course correction. He reached out, gripping the navigation arm, his claw shaking slightly. Veclor looked up from his console. We're drifting. Counter thrusters. Running. Then why are we moving? We're not. Zor blinked. Explain. We're not moving. The grid is. The ship isn't accelerating. The space around us is folding. Zor stepped toward the central command ring. On the heads-up map, the Oberix fleet repositioned once more. Only this time, no lines traced their paths. No vectors connected current location to past. They were in place and then somewhere else, and the software redrew the field to pretend it made sense. He turned slowly toward the energy diagram. Core output, stable. Shield layers, nominal. Weapon readiness, full. The ship was technically fine, so why couldn't it respond? Why did everything now feel 5 seconds too slow? He looked again at the environmental panel. 3 degrees colder. Still no source. Override the main reactor intake, he barked. No one moved. Zor stepped forward and took manual control. His claws hovered over the intake key. The command rail responded with resistance. Not failure, not denial, delay. A growing heaviness crept through his lower limbs. His breath thinned, not because of pressure loss, but because every movement demanded more effort. He shifted his weight, and the floor offered less feedback than it should have. He looked down. Frost formed beneath the rail grip, and it wasn't melting. Veclor. No answer. He turned. The adjutant's body had slumped, half frozen, still breathing, but unable to move fast enough to maintain cognitive function. The display lights slowed their flicker rate. Zor turned again to the heads-up chart. His fleet, his legacy, registered as blue-tinted blips. Every ship bore a new status tag. Unresponsive. His vision narrowed, not from rage, from constriction. His command chair groaned as he sat. Each servo responded like it had been soaked in brine. The friction had changed. Time itself had changed. He saw it. On the far right console, a sliver of external feed showed the shape of one Terran ship gliding just beneath their vector plane. No weapons charged, no flares, no words, just watching. The shape turned and left. Zor reached out with a trembling claw and tapped the emergency command rod beside his terminal. It lit once, green, then stopped. Frozen control rod, locked mid-cycle, last order unspoken. The Dominion died not in fire, but in pause. Transmit it now. No encryption, no translation layers. Unfiltered Commander Ryan Halveth's voice rang clean through Europa Command's final operations cycle. No flourish, no delay. He stood inside the black-tiled relay deck, watching as the last of the enemy signals collapsed. Zervani Command had stopped responding. Their beacon systems flickered with incomplete returns, codes stripped of origin, replies never reaching destination. The Council feeds were already spooling live. Over 93 sectors still monitored in real time, holding on to a flicker of hope that the Dominion would counter. They didn't understand what had happened. And that was the point. Understanding wasn't the message. The message was over. Drave Kolek adjusted the transmission focus, eliminating artificial signal padding. Packets stabilized, burned into sublayer compression. It'll reach every major comm array before they can isolate the spectrum. Rian gave a subtle nod. Vesenrul watched from the left side of the room, eyes hollow, shoulders low but unwavering. His hands hovered over a live diagnostic feed, still tracking pulse fractures in the Council's border net. The galaxy wasn't reacting. It was stalling. Every major block now hesitated, not out of fear, but uncertainty, not from damage, but from the kind of understanding that left nothing else to say. Ryan stepped forward and keyed the message buffer manually. No AI assisted in composition, no linguistic shaping, just a direct pulse, routed through dead satellites, ghost mirrors, and relay loops Earth had embedded decades ago and never used. Not once. Until now. The message was 3 words. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was an answer. Earth stands ready. The send command activated. The relay room fell still, not from absence of motion, but lack of required effort. There was nothing more to adjust. Every node completed its function. Every redundancy passed verification. The flickerless transmission slipped into every open channel, broadcasting across every council intelligence layer, black site archive, trade node, and military comm strand without asking permission. It landed everywhere. There were no replies. Across the galaxy, reactions diverged. On Arvon Prime, a council subfleet scrambled without clear orders. Its commanders fought over jurisdiction, unsure if they were facing an invasion or a precedent. In the outer rings of the Drakari coalition, military intelligence officers viewed the message as fake until it appeared simultaneously on systems without shared architecture. They rechecked origin points. There were none. On the edge of the Karth-Bren neutral zones, long-exiled human resistance groups intercepted the signal using relay tech they hadn't powered in years. They cried, not from hope, but from recognition. The galaxy didn't have a name for this kind of response. It wasn't retaliation. Earth hadn't clawed for position. They hadn't begged for recognition. They had absorbed a first strike, ended a military giant, then sent a message so brief it became unforgettable. Rian walked slowly toward the forward analytics station. The data field scrolled in geometric patterns, each reflecting the current layer of comm traffic bounce back. 89% saturation in under 60 seconds. It would spread faster than war ever could. Drave leaned in. We won't get a broadcast reply. I don't want one, Vesson added. We've restructured the council's information hierarchy. They won't know who to trust anymore. Their architecture isn't built for asymmetric outcomes. They thought we wanted a seat, Ryan said flatly. We don't need one. We just proved we could rearrange the floor plan. Tark Rennick stepped through the inner hatch, his expression unreadable, posture tighter than earlier. Echo Fall protocols terminated, all Dreadnoughts returning to dark pattern orbit. They'll read it as a full withdrawal. They'll call it mercy, Drav muttered. No, Ryan corrected. They'll call it unexplainable. That's more permanent. No one disputed him. Across the external display ports, Earth's orbital ring was reforming. Not from reconstruction, from reactivation. Systems long dormant now powered up, fed by back-end feeds buried inside the Moon network. Humanity wasn't rebuilding. They were reminding. In the heart of Trihex 6, where the Galactic Accord convened quarterly, the primary assembly chamber received the transmission 32 seconds after dispatch. Representatives froze mid-argument. The floor illumination dimmed without request. Emergency override kicked in. Every screen, wall, panel, and relay repeated the message in perfect clarity. Earth stands ready. A Jeveth delegate stood without being addressed, his eyes locked onto the central light field. This is the end of diplomatic pretense. Another leaned forward. Then what begins? No one answered. The question was irrelevant. The galaxy had gambled on Earth's inaction and lost. Now they weren't wondering how many ships Earth had hidden. They were wondering what else Earth hadn't said. On board Obsidian 1, orbiting Europa's night side, the crew compartment reset to low activity status. Cryo-core ammunition sealed, rail systems locked, no outward emissions, but all systems remained armed, just not active. The ship sat like a closed hand, fingers curled, unmoving. Rian stood at the main control center, now cleared of operation feeds. He looked out, not through glass, but through data. The stars were there. The Zervani weren't. Neither was denial. He spoke not loudly, not for theatrics, just so the record would reflect it. Let them argue. Let them write theories. Let them send probes and speculate. We will not reply. This was not a declaration. It was a conclusion. No one interrupted him. His hand moved to deactivate the forward feed. Before he did, he added one more line to the internal log. No vengeance, no fury, just clarity. The screen dimmed. There would be no more transmissions.